And you're welcome along. So it is a Tuesday evening. We have a great show for you. Brian O'Driscoll is in studio between 8 and 9. Tony Cascarino is in studio after 9. We'll also talk Newcastle in that football show hour. And this hour, Colin Boyle on the opening weekend of the All-Ireland Football Series. So that is the plan. 53106 is very much the text number. And you can get us at Off the Ball on Twitter. Please do. Michael McCarthy here in studio. Hello.
Hey, Joe.
And Richie McCormack, you are there as ever. Hello.
Lads, how are you?
Very well. So Brian O'Driscoll in studio. He'll be, must be said, mostly looking back on Leinster La Rochelle. But tomorrow, Munster fans, fear not. We have Wednesday Night Rugby, Keith Wood and Fiona Hayes. Fiona probably wearing a La Rochelle jersey, looking ahead to Munster.
You said that earlier, and Arthur actually grimaced. You went, you questioning like the most Irish of Irish rugby people in Fiona Hayes, like, you know what I mean? I would imagine she was cheering on Leinster.
I would imagine there was no chance.
We'll find out tomorrow. We'll have to get a straight answer.
No,
Jonah, why won't you answer the question? You haven't been asked.
No chance was she cheering on Leinster. So Munster fans will get into URC final tomorrow, but tonight it's one more rubbing of salt into the wounds and picking over the carcass of Leinster La Rochelle with Brian O'Driscoll in studio.
And it shall be picked over in there'll be nothing left, Joe.
Yeah, I saw him going through. He was on his Instagram stories earlier on. Like, he has freeze frames for those who doubt the minutiae that Brian goes into when he's looking into these games again. Like, he's picking out tiny little things, rucks and breakdowns and all that kind of thing. So it's actually fascinating to get a look behind the screen when he does that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, I think he likes to watch a game 45 times after it's happened before he pops into the studio. So he tends to have stuff written down. Yes, so that's on the way. There's rumours abound of a slight tangent tomorrow.
Those rumours are
to be confirmed.
I would say they have a lot of
credence.
Yes, credibility is what I was going to say there. Yes,
exciting.
I would suggest that if people want us to talk about certain things, that there's a certain email address they should get in the next 24 hours.
That's a good point. A slight tangent at offtheball.com. A slight tangent at offtheball.com. There is obviously a lot to talk about this week. It's a perfect week for it, so get in touch. We haven't done it in several weeks, I think, at this stage, so that's coming at you tomorrow. That is the plan. And we'll also talk Newcastle in the football show, as well as Tony Cascarino in studio. The Tony Cascarino interview, in some respects it breaks my heart, because he was over to promote a short feature he has recorded with Virgin Media, and we get into some incredibly interesting territory with him towards the end of the conversation, at which point he just simply had to go. He was required elsewhere for the premiere of the short video, but an extraordinary situation in his family life whereby he hasn't seen his son, one of his children, in 10 years, from the age of 16 from a former marriage. Things were acrimonious and difficult, and he's about to be reunited with his son this summer. So he talked about that, and we could have talked to him for another hour, I suspect, about that subject, but that is very much part of the conversation. And we did say to him, and he was very much amenable, that we would pick it up again. So we will do that for sure with Tony Cascarino, maybe in the next week or two. I mean, why wait? But a good chat nonetheless coming with them after 9 o'clock, followed by Newcastle. Man, it's funny, everything about Newcastle is so good except for the obvious.
This like massive cloud over for a lot of people, and then like I wonder if you don't experience that cloud, if you are immune to the rain and the shelter that the cloud brings. You know, is it in any way, you know, is this just magic? Like, I mean, in some ways, Newcastle, coming from where they have, if you try and take the Saudi stuff out of it and the state ownership, which in case people are listening in and think we have an issue with Saudi, whatever, you know, like take the state ownership out of it and you think where they've come from, and that, you know, they casually, easily qualified for the Champions League last night. How amazing that must be. But, you know, I think most of us aren't immune to that cloud, unfortunately.
And the thing about the ownership is it's not been a case of spending stupid money.
No. That's actually a key point. I think the achievement is an achievement here, regardless of whether you like it or not. Like, I mean, the wage bill isn't up there with top four teams, not to mention the fact that they've just kind of come from nowhere. These things build over time. They're not due to be in the Champions League quite yet. I think we will see a lot of money spent now that they're at that level, and they'll be a very interesting team to watch next year. But in fairness, like the job Eddie Howe done is such a cliche, But in fairness, the job Eddie Howe has done.
I wanted to resist it for a time, but there's no arguing anymore. They've spent 250 million, give or take, since the takeover, which is pretty much what Spurs have spent, for context. So you're talking...
Yeah. I always don't like, though, transfer fees being the way of, like, I mean, as a Villa fan, that would be thrown at you. You always have to remember what you're spending transfer fees on. Spurs are spending that on a couple of players building on a team that were already Champions League ready. Newcastle are basically starting from scratch.
Yeah.
And they haven't. They've got players that have survived, that were there in the Benitez era, that are still there and have been improved, you know. And also it's all about wage bill, because, I mean, when you just do a transfer fees, you have Man City down the list because they spent 60 million on Haaland, and people are giving them A+ for their transfer acumen, but nothing to do with the wages that they're giving the guy. Like,
yeah,
you know?
well, Kieran Kelly from the Newcastle Evening Chronicle will join us in the football show and explain all. But if you want a sense of their transfer spending, for instance, I know it's not the full picture, but it is Trippier for 12 million, Isak, their most expensive signing, 60 million. I think that will turn out to be very good value long term. Bruno Guimaraes for 35 million.
That's a steal.
The best of the lot.
Oh, isn't it just? Yeah. Dan Byrne, 13 million. Nick Pope, 10 million. Not to mention the improvements that Howe has managed to prompt in so many players who were already there. So again, you know, 20 years on from Bobby Robson and that Champions League team, fresh from the 90s when they were everybody's second favourite team, there'd be a lot of love for them right now were it not for the great big Saudi cloud.
Yeah, you didn't mention the 40 million just thrown away on my favourite player, Anthony Gordon, in there as well. You know, there's definitely going to be more, like, again, what is it that makes the Manchester City thing? It's always about the spending. It's like, so they can afford Calvin Phillips to not work out. Likewise, Newcastle can now afford Anthony Gordon to be a massive mistake and never play for them again. You know, that's always the difference here.
Would Mick care so much about Saudi investment if they'd bought Aston Villa, says Jason Dillon?
Yes.
Oh, he'd have he'd have a towel on his head. Would you stop?
He'd have a Birmingham jersey on his. He'd have a Birmingham jersey on his back as well.
No, I would. I certainly would. That's why I never understand when Manchester United fans are kind of like, you know, oh, you know, it'll be, you know, the ship has sailed here, you know, the horse has bolted, what can you do? It's like, I think it's a nightmare. I think it's absolutely what you don't want. But then what happens after that, maybe you start getting a little bit more defensive and you start knowing certain nuances that aren't being told, and you do kind of turn, but it's certainly not what I would want in advance, for sure.
Cascarino, O'Driscoll, Colin Boyle, not a bad show, lads, to be fair, says Keenan Limerick. No, it's not bad.
A few achievements among those three.
Yeah. Brian in Portmarnock, I watched the Brian O'Driscoll chat on YouTube earlier, lads. I'm not sure what to make of his assessment on great teams. I mean, he's better placed than most to judge, but it seems a harsh assessment. This was earlier. We'll play out the full piece, obviously, after 8 o'clock. I suppose, in quick enough terms, he had said on BT Sport during a Leinster game on commentary that he really hoped this Leinster team got over the line, because in his eyes they're probably the best that Leinster have ever been. This is the best Leinster team, and I put that to him in the conversation, where does it leave them now? And he said, well, look, you just can't be called great unless you win, and you know, be that Mayo or any other example you care to mention. He said you just can't say they're a great team. I don't think it's that controversial a view, really, you know.
Yeah, I think that like Leinster have I agree completely. Actually, I don't agree. I actually do think that Mayo are a great team, and I think the reason for that is it's the exception that proves the rule. Dublin are considered the greatest team of all time.
I'm getting a look from Arthur in there through
Arthur disagrees with this. We've had this conversation many times. Dublin are considered the greatest team of all time. Mayo pushed them to the edge many times. Draws, 1 point defeats, etc. I don't think La Rochelle are considered the best team of all time. Leinster are in a position where they had a home Heineken Champions Cup final against a team that they would have thought they could beat. They went 17-0 up. Don't forget they had big leads in both those matches and didn't complete it. I think that's where you go into, you have to win those games to be considered a great team. You can't just dominate, you flat track bullies all the way through the season and not win the finals. Mayo are the exception.
Yes, and Mayo were away from home. The Newsround is brought to you
moment that
with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition is available now. Richie, to the football. So the Irish under-17s absolutely need to win this evening.
They do indeed. They're targeting a quarter-final place in the Under-17 European Championships, needing a victory in their final Group A game if they're to progress to the last 8. They made a decent fist of tonight's start. Indeed, Luke Kerr gave them the lead after just 5 minutes against the tournament hosts Hungary, but Jake Grant has glanced a header into his own net, so it's 1-1 with 12 minutes on the clock there. Colin O'Brien made one change from the weekend win over Wales, with UCD's Daniel Babb coming into defence for Wexford's Calum Harnett. Tipperary hurling manager Liam Cahill looks set to be hit with a 4-week ban. The CCCC has recommended the punishment for comments made by Cahill towards linesman James Owens in Tip's draw with Limerick last weekend. If the ban is accepted, then Cahill can have no involvement in the preparation of his side for this weekend's meeting with Waterford, nor a potential Munster final.
That's hefty, isn't it?
Do you think so?
Somewhat.
Well, I don't know what he said.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know. We know what this why he was sent off and what for.
I'm not saying harsh. I'm saying hefty, as in he must have said something.
Yeah, it's. I thought it was a touchline ban, I have to say, and I was talking to Will and he was and Arthur, and they were like, no, this is like no training. I was joking. I was saying he should be banned from picking the team, considering the Tip are most likely going to play Clare in the Munster final, and they were like, no, that is actually what the ban is, and hefty is actually a good word for it. Yeah, I don't mean to suggest that he's going to break the rule, but I do wonder how it's enforced.
Please don't.
No, but I'm just wondering, like, how do you ban somebody from a private training session? There's no officials at those training sessions.
There's a rich tradition of no contact with the team rules broken in every sport.
You would just imagine that he will at least have something to do with the preparation, even if he's not there or whatever, So I just, at this stage of the season, how much is there to lose from it, I suppose,
There was also a degree after his red card of, it was in the dying moments, I'm going. I just hang on, have a look at this free. I'm gone. I'm still here. I'm having a look. I'm gone. I'm off. And then the whistle blew and he's like, well, sure, I might as well walk back out of the pitch and shake hands if I'm still here. It was the slowest departure I've ever seen. Meanwhile, Giro.
Yeah, big news today and a big day for Irish riders. Eddie Dunbar up 3 places to 5th on general classification after an excellent ride in stage 16. The Corkman finished 4th on the Monte Bondone, with stage victory going to João Almeida. Geraint Thomas was second behind the Portuguese rider and regains the overall leaders Malha Rosa, with Dunbar 3 minutes and 3 seconds behind on GC. As I mentioned, a good day for Irish riders, with Ben Healy taking the King of the Mountains jersey, having been part of a breakaway earlier in the stage. Dunbar was pleased with his day's efforts.
It's only my second Grand Tour, so yeah, as I said, but I think we're learning quick, and yeah, what happened, we were prepared for it. This is 3-week race, you have to pace yourself. I know my limits. I had to back off a bit there, and yeah, I think that was the moment where the race kind of went, and I backed my way back to Roglic and Kuss, and yeah, as I said, I just sat on them. Kuss rode a really good tempo to limit the losses, and then yeah, Primoz brought the gap back a bit there to finish, but yeah.
Certain Mayo footballer who will remain nameless is texted to say, we were a great team, which I like.
Thanks for that, Aidan.
No, I'll never reveal. Although I'd love to arrange a debate with him and Brian O'Driscoll. I'd watch that.
Was he a Mayo player at that time?
Oh, he's a Mayo player of that era.
Oh,
yeah.
Right, okay. Sorry, yeah, I'll stop speculating.
No, don't speculate. Yeah. It's not fair. And to be fair, there's crying, laughing face as well. So there's a degree of
fair play, Lee.
Somebody does ask, how is a GAA ban on involvement with the team policed? It's not, I suppose. Isn't that the
honour system?
The honour system.
Well, he won't be on the sideline, or you'd imagine in the dressing room for the Waterford game, and if they qualify for the Munster final. That's a big deal, regardless of what happens with the training.
Oh, big time, yeah.
I wonder, who I don't know who's responsible for this, is the Munster Council, or were they sending spies to Semple Stadium on Tuesday night to kind of, is Liam Cahill, if he does, he won't break the ban, but if he did jump into the wash baskets like Mourinho.
Yeah.
Are they tracking his phone records to see if he's making phone calls or Zoom calls or Skype calls? What if they rented one of those, those advertising trucks that drive around and have an LED screen on the side of it? Like, what if they get one of those, hook it up to a Skype signal, and have Cahill operate the training session remotely, so he's not there? They've got the truck parked side of the pitch. Yeah. This is absolutely. I'm just trying to explore what the limits are to this ruling, because it seems, I don't know, unless they do have somebody parked outside training. Monitoring this, it seems a bit hard to place.
Again, we keep making this about Liam Cahill, who, again, to stress, will absolutely abide by any ruling. But like, what is to happen if like he's in the car there and his phone rings and it's Noel McGrath?
Yeah. Oh, the idea that he's not going to talk to the players, like, yeah.
I mean, come on.
What if he disguises his voice like they used to do with political members of certain parties in the 1980s in the North?
Yeah.
Like what's the, if he's using an intermediary or proxy voice?
It's Keem Lahal here.
Look, let's stop speculating on this specific instance. I think Vinicius then. So this thing is really heating up, Richie.
It is, yeah. Police in Spain today arrested 3 young men in connection with the racist abuse suffered by Vinicius Jr. on Sunday. The trio were released from custody after statements were taken, and they could return to court if summoned on hate crime charges. Valencias say they helped identify the males who were aged between 18 and 21. Separately, 4 people have been arrested in connection with the hanging of a Vinicius effigy off a Madrid bridge back in January. They were aged between 19 and 24. And the VAR official whose decision led to Vinicius' sending off at the Mestalla on Sunday has been stood down from duty.
Graham Hunter was great on this topic last night in the football show. It's very much waiting for you on podcast or on our social channels. Well worth a listen. He was saying, interestingly, that the outcry in this instance has been far more encouraging than what he has seen, or I guess, as is the case, not seen over the past year or so when it comes to Vinicius.
I was going to say last night as well that like the Madrid police after the Atletico game, quickly kind of said, look, this is just fans chanting in a sporting environment, and it did seem like that the police are going to take more steps this time. It's like I don't know if it's death by 1,000 cuts or whether it's coverage or why, but it definitely does seem like it is. Even if we don't get satisfaction at the end of it, it's definitely a step forward. But as Graham was saying, what did he say? Like, it's not the first time he said it in his 20 years in Spain. There has been progress, but it's been painfully slow.
Yeah.
So yeah, any progress is definitely good if you consider that.
Love Big Cass, says somebody. Still the oldest man to score a hat-trick in Ligue 1.
Right, okay. What a brilliant part of his story that was, the rejuvenation. Like, he was like, he had a couple of, didn't go well from a Chelsea, didn't go well from a Villa,
or Celtic.
and Celtic, of course, yeah. And then suddenly you just go to France and Marseille and
Nancy,
yeah.
He it comes up in the interview, which we'll play at after 9. He had a lot going on in his personal life at the time, just wasn't as focused as he could be. It was a bit of it like Jack the Lad as well, and English football at that time was a good time. And he said he would put on weight too easily. Like, he talked, not to completely undercut the whole piece, but it's always a great mates with Teddy Sheringham, who was just lean as it gets and perfect metabolism. But on a holiday one week, he said, well, I'm just going to mirror what Teddy does. What he drinks, what he eats, and let's see what happens. And Teddy came home 2 pounds lighter, and he went home 7 pounds heavier. So he just couldn't do that, and he was booed on his debut at Stamford Bridge. That's how unpopular a signing it was in 1992. Right. Having gone to Villa and Celtic, booed on his debut, scored 2 goals, got man of the match, but was booed. And then in France, he got really serious, he got really lean, he got really fit, and had this great 6 years, 7 years.
Yeah, unbelievable. Really, like, if you think about when Ireland, like, he's still banned from international football, I think, to this day, because he was sent off after the game against Turkey. But that was in 2000.
Yeah.
Do you know, like, 99 for Euro 2000. Like, he really, really and that's his international career. He still went on after that. So it's a brilliant like second half of, or last third of his career.
Yeah. And brilliant media career as well. I mean,
yeah,
the Times for 20 plus years, TalkSport 20 plus years. That's no joke over there, that kind of longevity. Bukayo Saka, Richie?
Yeah, new long-term deal for him at Arsenal. His new one keeps him at the Emirates until 2027. He's going to earn in around 200 grand a week there. Saka, who's nominated for the Premier League Player of the Season, scored 14 times during the current season.
If Leinster aren't a great team for losing 3 finals while winning 4, then Mayo aren't at the races, says Angus on YouTube. I suppose we're talking about very different teams here. From a Leinster point of view, like, you can't say Leinster have won 4. I mean, Johnny Sexton has won 4.
Yeah,
but
who else
in that team?
Well, he said, how many finals have they lost?
This is 3 now, and the semi-finals feel like finals.
And they were in a final in 2018, so they're there or thereabouts. The problem is, and I was thinking about this actually yesterday because we were asked about the coaches, and it's like you're grading on a curve. You absolutely are, and it's unfortunate, but like there's an argument that Leinster are the best club team in the world, and we just there's definitely a little old Ireland attitude that we have sometimes to this. Like there's with the resources and with the players, and they don't have endless resources, they don't have a benefactor or anything like that, but the way Irish rugby is set up and the way Leinster's rugby is set up, they need to achieve, you know what I mean? And it's like, so sorry that like a 1 point defeat isn't good enough, Leo and Stewart, 2 years in a row, that's tough. Any other club you'd be saying they're outplaying their coverage, but Leinster aren't, so they're obviously top 3, top 4, top 2, but they need to be the best, at least at some point, you know what I mean? It's like this doesn't have to last forever. They're going into these players aren't going to be there forever, and we don't know what the next generation is going to be.
I think you win the odd final, win one of 3, and then I think there's a real currency to the argument that look, you can't win them all, and these are tight margins.
Yeah, and there's other good teams, and you're there or thereabouts.
All 3 and the semi-final as well, and like at home as well. That quarter-final to Saracens, the Viva, then it starts to be what was it Jerry said? The script is a little bit dog-eared at a certain point now,
and they're not whacking in URCs. I know it's really, really tough with the schedule as well, but their number of domestic titles hasn't been incredible over the last few years.
Last year, did they win 3 in a row before that?
Did they win 3 in a row finals?
I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's the point. So. It's hard to remember. So Wigan Athletic, Richie relegated. However, McLean.
Yeah, James McLean is going to stay with Wigan despite the relegation to League One, despite the belief that he was out of contract and perhaps even heading back to Derry City. The Republic of Ireland international has been listed among Wigan's retained players for next season. Fellow internationals Will Keane and Jamie McGrath have also been retained by Wigan, who will start with a 4-point penalty next season after failure to pay their players on time. This term, McLean was never present for them, and indeed their player of the season.
Now, I don't know why this story wasn't the top of the Newsround, because I just still can't get enough of it.
4 in a row, Joe, sorry.
4 in a row.
Yeah, before they lost to the Stormers, so I'm completely wrong in that comment, sorry about that.
2-1 to Ireland, by the way, in that under-17 Group A game. It's another goal for Ron Amelia, the St. Pat's youngster, who's gone on the score sheet there. The DHL Stormers have stoked the fires, meanwhile, ahead of Saturday's URC Grand Final with Munster. Assistant coach Rita Hlungwangi has defended their hooker, Joseph Dweba, for his celebrations that were captured in a video after Munster's semi-final win over Leinster. Dweba was heard to roar the words, "We are going to F them up," and Hlungwangi says Dweba can back up his statements.
Yeah, look, Joseph is a very lovely player, he's got a bit of a mouth on him, but he is one guy, who usually backs up his words, But, in saying what was said, it wasn't something that was meant to go out to the public and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily his fault, but, if there's one guy that I would sort of beg to back up his own words, it's Joseph. So it's not something that we really had a long chat about. At the end of the day, we respect Munster, probably the only team that we haven't beaten in the USC. They're coming here, with a strong team. So it's a team we respect highly.
That's pretty well handled, to be fair. He hasn't stoked that up as much as I was hoping for Richie.
He's saying if there's anybody who can back up these words, it's Jason Dweba. And his words were, "We're going to F them up."
I know. But he can't throw his own guy over the the side. He has to.
I don't think he's thrown over the side. I don't think anybody would expect him to. Nor did I think anybody would really expect him to go, yeah, no, he's probably is going to F them up in his own little way, which is more or less what he's said there. Like, there's a bit of a smirk about the Stormers going into this game that I like. There's comments from John Dobson, who's very self-deprecating as regards their the field there at the DHL Stadium, which we know is an absolute bog. But they have a little bit of a confident smirk about them that I don't dislike. I think there's an inner strength there, and they're looking to prove a point, and I think those comments kind of belie that as well.
Yeah. Last one, Bobby on YouTube. I met Teddy at a Spurs game a few weeks ago. Still in incredible shape, and he's 57 years old. Oh, don't tell me Teddy Sheringham's 57 years old.
I know, yeah, he's getting old. There was a story about Sheringham, like he was still playing. Was he like playing for West Ham when he was like 40?
Played till he was 42.
And got to the cup final.
There was a story that somebody did a feature with him, or and he was in his house in London or whatever, and the fridge just had bottles of champagne and nothing else in it. Like, you know, and this is a guy, like, he's what a consummate professional this guy must be. He's playing in the Premier League until he's 41. Like, it's unbelievable, you know. But I
think Tony was saying, like, he has a slightly overactive thyroid or something, which means he can't put on weight.
But surely it surely can't be just weight though as well. Like, I mean, it's probably trains. I know, but like, yeah.
No, I know what you're saying.
Champagne only diet.
First 5 yards were in his head, Mick. Don't know if you heard that about Teddy Sheringham.
Yeah, good player. SAS.
But he was a good player.
Sheringham. Oh, spectacular player. Yeah. Think about that team, like, you know, because the England, say, with Shearer, right? No, Shearer and Sutton was the SAS, but sorry, Sheringham was always picked with Shearer at England, and you had Chris Sutton, for example, you had Andy Cole, Robbie Fowler, all these lads, Ian Wright, all these lads who were scoring 30 goals a year in the Premier League, and it was always Sheringham that was the guy to make the best, to get the most out of Shearer. Like,
watch that beautiful opening of the body and side foot pass to Shearer in the Holland game. That's why he's in the team.
Yeah,
it's just that good. We are pretty much done. Richie, thank you very much.
Nice. Mason Mealy, as I mentioned, getting that second goal for Ireland. There's 28 minutes on the clock there in Hungary, so looking good so far for Colin O'Brien's side.
And it's a case, Richie, a win puts them through. There's no
they need a win.
Goal difference.
A draw essentially would I think put Hungary through, just based on previous records. But yeah, they need to win to go through, and touch wood's gone good on that front so far.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Richie. Michael, thank you very much.
Cheers, lads. Thanks.
Your chance to win big. News Talk's Cash Machine.